Be smart, it's your money.
The Undercover Contractor with Matt Tappara.
So today on the Undercover Contractor podcast, I have Paul and Michael. I'm super excited about this. You guys are with elite group inspection professionals, and I think this is going to be super valuable for our listeners for a lot of reasons. I also have a little surprise for you on the table, which we'll get into. But first, I want you guys to introduce, your company, a little bit of a backstory, and we're going to cover some gold nuggets today that are going to be really cool.
Well, that's awesome. Paul, why don't you go first?
My name is Paul Lister. I'm Director of Operations with the Elite Group. The Elite Group, short backstory, has been in business in California for 37 years, and we are the largest home inspection company that's privately owned in North America.
Love that.
Well, that's a great intro. I don't have to lead into that much.
What do you got?
My name is Mike Spears, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Elite Group. I started there about 10 years ago, and I originally started in construction. In about 2005, got my general contractor's license and had to live through several of the financial woes of the industry, and that led me to the home inspection industry. But we got a great company, 80 inspectors, over 100 employees, and like Paul said, the largest in the nation. So we do about 25 to 30,000 inspections a year.
Wow.
And we got an enormous amount of data that we learn from, and we pass that down to our team members and constantly educating. It's a very cool job.
So it's safe to say you're passionate about what you do?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
It, man. I love it.
We're here talking about it. So I got a little surprise for you. This is going to be fun. We've never done it with two people yet. So little game we like to play, a little icebreaker. So you'll see in front of you, you've got red cups. You've got, so 1 cup, 4 pencils, 8 straws, and then you're each going to get 2 pieces of tape. Oh, I guess we gave you 3. That's right.
Okay.
3 pieces of tape. So what we're trying to do here, we're going to have 2 minutes, quick fun thing.
Okay.
All right. You validated yourselves in my opinion, but we got to validate it another way. So what this is going to be is you're going for, and I'm going to let you guys battle it out, the tallest structure that you can build in 2 minutes with the tools set forth in front of you. So we're going to do a quick little countdown here.
I don't like you.
And we're going to see.
I'm going to lose.
And we're going to see how this shakes out. So any questions before we get started? We're not going for looks. We're going for height. I got a tape measure here. We're going to measure it up.
Okay.
One question.
Yeah.
Can I tear the piece of tape into
Absolutely.
multiple pieces of tape?
Much as you want. Love it.
You shouldn't have listened to that question.
All right.
Let's do
All
it.
right.
No.
All right. Ready? Colin?
Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Let's rock. Okay. Cups. Maybe a hole through the top.
Oh, I don't know. I
If
can't
we
get
can't-
that. That's not going to work.
If we can't, we can't.
This is the weirdest thing I've
Look at
ever worked
this.
on.
Look at this.
I will say we inspect houses.
We don't build them.
much better
Exactly.
than we build
I believe it. I believe it.
pencil and cup structures.
Look at this.
Even
Look.
with my past construction knowledge, I'm not quite sure this is going
And I'm
to
just
work.
mimicking what he's doing.
Yeah, there you
Stop.
go.
You're a cheater.
But that's smart. Look at this. Okay, so we got red cups, taping on the side. Look at
I think
this.
the key is going to be, don't you dare cheat, Paul Lister.
You guys are, look at this. So Paul's got a strategy. He's going to tape the pencils on the side. He's going for height. He's not messing around.
That is not going to hold up to earthquake standards.
Yeah,
anymore.
see?
Totally up
So-
to code.
So he's going code and height here.
Can I use some Simpson brackets? I think if I had some Simpson brackets, I'd be in a better place. Yeah.
I love it. Look at this.
Oh man, I'm not sure what I want.
You
Oh,
got
I don't know what
this.
to do. Hang
Are
on.
we,
How much
Oh yeah,
time
whatever
do we
you got.
have?
50 seconds. Yeah.
How much time
So-
do we have?
So Paul's got cup, pencil taped on the
That
side,
is ridiculous.
3 high.
That is never gonna.
and then
Mike is
Michael's-
lost.
yeah, he's
Mike
got
is
a-
lost. At
Mike
this
is,
point, 'cause I'm trying to.
but Mike's looks really cool. If I had to vote for cool, I'd go.
I appreciate that.
I'd go
we're not
Mike.
talking aesthetics.
We're not-
We're running coolness now.
Look at this.
Well,
27
this
seconds.
reminds me
Look
of
at
high
that.
school when they made me try to do that project where you drop the egg off the second story and they
I was
give you a
never
bunch
good
of
at that.
Oh,
That was
I
horrible.
never. Mine
Yeah.
broke every time.
Oh, yeah.
Mine,
All right,
Look
I'm
at
just gonna
this.
go back to something different here.
We're
Paul.
going basics here. We're
I'm
going
gonna go back
basics.
to-
Look at that.
It's all about
Mike's-
foundation. It's all about foundation.
Mike's, I
Paul.
would live in that. Whatever you're building, Mike, I would live in
If I
that.
could somehow. Could I use my knife?
Sure. Yeah. 3, 2,
Whoops.
1.
There's
Look at
no
this.
way.
Okay, well.
I cannot. Mine
It's gonna be-
gonna sustain that.
It's-
this looks like a drink in Vegas.
Yeah. Or New Orleans, right?
Well, yeah, there you go.
So,
so
let's see.
embarrassed.
I'm not sure who won. But we'll have to We'll have to measure. So, all right, let's see, Paul. What
He's
you got?
throwing tape.
Yeah, I'm throwing tape. I'm trying to get.
Hold that steady for you,
Oh,
because it's
man.
tall.
You don't even want to know. You, my friend, are holding the new record. 25.
That's a record.
It's a record, man. That's a
I
record.
tried to do the thing
I
with
love
the
it.
straws and it didn't work.
Guys are
I'm
unbelievable.
embarrassed.
Inspecting,
You're walking home.
building. Look at that. So now that the fun's out of the way, I feel like I know you guys better now. You know, that's what that's about. It's like the CIA. You know, they do those things where they're like.
Rest
How
assured,
do-
Matt, you're going to get an email from me with the most awesome structure when I go home and
I
actually
believe it.
engineer this.
I believe it. So, you know, I think, I mean, that was fun. That was awesome. So, you know, tell me a little bit about, I guess let's dive into the hot topic I want to know. Let's just go right for it.
Sure.
So contractors do inspections versus home inspection companies. How do you know when to hire who, what? I mean, I'm a homeowner. I don't know anything about this stuff. I'm going on Google, right? What do I do? I mean, what do you recommend as the experts?
Well, you know, I would have to say that a dedicated inspection company that doesn't have any ulterior motives would be the jumping off point, because as an inspection company, I'm not selling a service other than a home inspection. If I note that there's multiple defects in your plumbing system, I'm not a plumber as well. I'm not going to be selling you the system. So I'm an objective third party that can give you an honest appraisal of the condition of the systems at the time of the inspection.
Unbiased. is the
Unbiased.
key. I think, where the home inspection issue was born out of this construction process, right? So the realtors were getting sued in the 1980s lots of litigation going on because they were selling homes and no one was looking at them, and then there was problems, and so then they started grabbing people that they knew were in construction and bringing them over, and they were starting to help them with the inspection. But then, like Paul said, it became a very biased opinion, because now everybody who's ever been a contractor, and I've been a contractor, you have to hustle. You're working all the time, and so it's difficult to change caps between, hey, this is safe for your family, versus, hey, I want to paint your house and I want to upgrade your plumbing.
Yeah.
And so the home inspector now, you take an ethical, course where you're unbiased. You have to remain unbiased, because if you have any skin in the game afterwards, then your opinion is now reflecting that in your inspection. So it's kind of a unique way that it's evolved over the years.
Yeah, they say follow the money, and it's almost like what you're saying is like, look, who has the vested interest, right? Contractor. And that's in the foundation space in particular, right? Some people call foundation companies to do inspections, right? We do, the bar masonry is masonry and concrete, but we're usually working alongside those companies. And I always found it interesting when the foundation contractor, right, offers an inspection service, and they come out and they inspect it and like, hey, the whole thing's got to come out. And it's like, well, does it really? Where's the ethics behind that? There's a lot of trust you're putting in the contractor, and I think that's what, where you guys come into the space. I think it's really, really cool what you guys do.
Yeah, and it's not to say that all contractors are like that.
Agreed.
The majority of contractors are good people and provide a great service. But with a dedicated inspection company, you take any questions you have about that out of the equation.
Yeah, and it's peace of mind, right?
Absolutely.
And the other thing I like too is, when you're just a home inspector, you're focused on something different than what the contractors are very, like, they follow the set of rules, they follow code, right? And so they might walk into a house, it's like the house is built in 1975, and then they walk into this kitchen that was also built in 1975, and they're like, oh, you need GFIs everywhere, you need this, you need that. Well, the reality is, for the sale of the home, you don't need that. Home inspectors, and shifting gears here, are now focused on building science for the age that the home is built. So our inspectors are specifically trained that if I walk into a house that's built in 1975 and that kitchen doesn't have GFIs, I'm going to recommend that they get them, but I'm not going to alarm them or alert them that it doesn't have them. And you kind of see where I'm going
Absolutely.
with that process, because this is the biggest purchase someone's going to make in their life. And if you scare them away because because the house is older, that doesn't mean that the house is bad. It just means that, it's going to need some upgrades and over time to be safer. And so I think that's another major difference that happens. The contractor's always thinking about current code and upgrading to this code, and the home inspector's thinking about science and preventative maintenance and things like that. So,
and we were talking a little bit about before we started recording about some of the tech you guys use. I mean, it's a whole different, right? So I love this story, right? So I started my dad, right? My dad did masonry, concrete construction, grandfather, great grandfathers, and so I can remember sitting next to my dad. at pizza places with the, advertiser for the yellow pages 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
And then we're like, hey, Matt, my dad's just a senior, and they'd be like, hey, Matt, how's business? And he'd be like, it's pretty good. And they're like, oh, okay, a quarter page, that'll do. If you were a little slower, I'd say half page. And then like, if you're really slow, you get a full page, right? So like that.
Yeah.
And so the industry has changed so much. And I think a lot of what, homeowners really, really want and need, and what we're doing here today even is the education, because like, look at what you guys use for technology. And we can talk a little bit about that, because it's mind blowing. I mean, I was the one who used to crawl under the foundations. We used to do waterproofing stuff. And the way we used to do it, you'll laugh, is with walkie talkies. My dad would be outside spraying, you start at the low point and you work your way up, right? And my dad he'd be like, all right, I'm in the back corner. And I'm like, okay, nothing. And he'd be like, all right, I'm going up 2 feet spraying. And like, that was my childhood, right? Weird Saturdays with my dad. And so to see the technology you use, I want to emphasize to homeowners, like, the game has changed. It's up leveled, right? So we should talk a little bit about that, what that looks like, and what, why that's so important to have that technology. Why is it there?
Absolutely. And I keep stepping on you.
No,
I
go for
apologize. You used that word education, and this is unrelated to your question, but I wanted to touch on it so we don't forget about it. The Elite Group in particular takes a different approach to the inspection than a lot of home inspection companies out there. We feel that it's our job as the subject matter expert related to home inspection to educate. We don't want to just highlight defects. We want to educate a potential home buyer, an existing homeowner, on all aspects of their home so that they can better maintain the home down the line.
Yeah, education is key, and it's funny you mentioned about the tools. And we see all kinds of home inspectors from all walks of life. I mean, the other day I was doing an inspection with a new trainee, and just across from me in another condo was a old school contractor kind of guy with the rag out of his back pocket, still writing things down on a clipboard. And here we are using an app-based inspection program and taking photos with our phone. And we've got all this tricky gear. And that's, the key to, I think, to the success of the Elite Group overall is just investing in technology and investing in that education to our people. We're walking around now with thermal imaging equipment. So, we can't see through walls, but we can certainly use the best tools on the market to tell us if we've got a temperature differentiation that might indicate a possible problem inside of a wall, whether it be electrical or water problem. We've got the most FAA approved drone licensed pilots on our staff.
Wow.
There are limitations to what a home inspector can do, and with so many homes going up nowadays that are built with concrete or tile roofs that we're not allowed to walk on, or they might be 3-story properties that we can't access with a standard ladder. We've gone above and beyond to purchase drones for everybody in our company, and as they successfully negotiate that course and they become an FAA pilot, we hand that drone over to them, and now they can give that client a better view of that roof. An aerial view of the roof from all these different angles with the drone is amazing. The technology is amazing.
Absolutely.
And those are just two of the coolest tools. And then you have things like, hey, we can't fit in that tight crawl space because it was built in 1930 and there was no access or whatever. And so now we have these robotic kind of remote control cars that have cameras on them that help us get to areas that we can't get to. And like, those aren't used every single time, because we talked a little bit, there's still a human factor to this. We want to make sure that our instincts, our smell, our sight, our peripherals are always being used. We might hear a drip from somewhere what a robot can't hear, but it's a good technology to have. And then there's some basic technology, just like moisture meters. I mean, that's one of the greatest things for a home inspector ever, because there's common areas you're expecting to find moisture. And if you have this meter to help put someone's mind at ease that, hey, I checked that area and there's 0% moisture in there, or there might be there's a valid amount of moisture in there that's okay, like soft woods are allowed to be about 10% moisture. It's great to just be able to show those in your photographs, and it just builds that confidence too in that home buyer or home seller that you're thoroughly looking at everything for them and you're using the top tier technology to give them the best education they can get.
Yeah, there's huge confidence in that transparency and being like, don't believe me, here it is, right? Like there's no,
it's not my word.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm showing you.
It's
right
very data driven, which I think is huge. Now I'm a homeowner, right? And I'm going to buy a house, right? So obviously home inspection, I mean, we're pretty well seasoned to think that that's somewhat important, right? If not very important, right? There's differing views in the marketplace, right? But it's somewhat, is there any other time where I would, as a homeowner, I should have a home inspection done?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take this one. As obviously in the sale transaction, if you're selling a home, it's great to have what's called a pre-listing home inspection. So I'm going to sell my home. Let me have a home inspector come and tell me what's wrong. So I have the opportunity to make those repairs or fixes or whatever it is needed so that when I put my house on the market, it's going to get the top dollar and I'm not going to be hit with another home inspection tells me all these things are wrong. And then on the other side of that, as a buyer, even if they have a pre-sale inspection, even from my company, everybody's perspective is different. I could walk in and inspect the house for the seller and I see certain things, and then Paul comes in for the buyer and he sees certain things. We're never going to be exact. The nature of humans working on the job, but the buyer would hire Paul and Paul would come in and do that inspections. And those are the most common, right? Yeah. But the one that I think gets overlooked, and this is the one where I really wish homeowners would really start paying attention to it, is a home maintenance inspection. Yeah. Whether you live in your house for 1 year and you've never done anything to it, or others people have lived in their house for 10 years and never done one thing to it. Why wouldn't you take the advantage of a small fee under $500 to have somebody come out and give you an unbiased opinion about what's wrong so that you can maintain that's just the largest investment of your life. And if you spend $50,000 on a Tesla, you're going to do all the maintenance on that Tesla, but you're spending upwards of $500,000 on a home. You would think that you'd want to always maintain everything about that home because that's your biggest investment.
Yeah, I mean, when I started writing the book, The Undercover Contractor, How to Not Get Screwed by Your Contractor, it blew my mind, right? You touched on it. Most expensive purchase, usually, purchase of the home, but you have a whole team of people, right? You've got your real estate agent, you've got mortgage broker, money goes into escrow, hopefully someone's called you guys for an inspection, right? Home inspection. But you have this whole team. And then it's like, well, when you go to hire a contractor for the maintenance of your home, you're left to make a lot of these decisions based on what that contractor is telling you. So I'm a huge believer. We were talking about this before we started recording of maintenance, right? Because but it's so sad, right? Because a lot of contractors, they don't necessarily, maintenance takes time. You have to educate. For example, right? We pour concrete, and when I use integral dye concrete or powdered dyed concrete, it's super important that you're sealing it and you're maintaining it, because in 3 to 5 years, the color is going to start to bleach out if you don't. But these are simple, easy things. But it takes time to educate the client. I don't make a ton of money on the maintenance service. I make way more money if the client does no maintenance and calls me back in 5 years and says, hey, Matt, my color's a mess and there's all these stains and, what do I do? And I'm like, well, you either got to strip and restain, or, if it's real bad and there's water intrusion, rebar rusting, you got to rip it out. So I love this conversation, and that's why I think homeowners are going to glean a lot from this, because what you're saying is if you take the time to understand that your home is really dependent on you investing in the maintenance, because that's what it is, right? Yeah. Maintenance is an investment. You can avoid a lot of the costly things that I get phone calls for, that are like, hey, my wall's falling over. Hey, this happened. Yeah. So how often do I do it as a homeowner? Guide me through that process. I'm living in a home for 3 years. Do I need it 5 years? Like what?
I'd say ideally it would be a yearly inspection. There's differing levels of knowledge that homeowners have. The most common question I get when doing a summary review on a home inspection is, how often should I change my HVAC air filter?
Every 3
months. The most simple, we're talking concrete. Yeah. That's that simple thing. A lot of people don't know that there's maintenance intervals for something as basic as those filters. So a yearly, and conditions can change quite rapidly over the course of a year. So I'd say every year would be optimal for every homeowner.
Yeah, I agree with you. Annual maintenance is the best way to stay on top of it. I mean, you wouldn't go a whole year without, at least looking at your car, checking the oil and kicking tires and things like that. So
you're very granular with the car. You need to do it with the home as well.
That's right. That's right. I mean, so again, you have things that are very interval, like 3 months, every 3 months, change your oil or your air filter. But then you've got, I would say it's a seasonal thing too, right? Because we have expansion, contraction in the houses. And that's the cool thing about being a nerdy home inspector. I love all these things about the science behind the building has changed over the years. In a 1960s house is constructed differently than a 2021 house. And so you have to be in a different frame of mind when you walk into those. And that's one of the things you get with a home inspector is we're not keeping up on code. We're keeping up on building science. And so I know when I walk into this house in 1987, there was specific defects in that generation of houses that we're looking for, where we can tell you if you have them, like Rampart general chimneys and all these other nerdy things that we know, right? Yeah. But let's just go back to the seasonality of it, right? So every October, I have the HVAC guy out to my house, and I have him do a complete, heater like cleaning and check out my coil box. He's up in my attic. He's making sure everything is good. changing the filter again, because I know I'm going to be running the heater for the next X amount of months. And then vice versa, as April comes around and it starts to get warmer, or May starts to get warmer, you have them back out, and now they're outside checking your compressor. They're going to go back through and change that filter again. They're going to make sure there's no coil box problems, because now I'm going to be running the AC on a regular basis, right? So it's all in intervals when it comes to that. But people even lack the general maintenance when it comes to windows and doors, or even stucco maintenance, like little cracks. Like I love your videos on cracks, and the quarter test is so cool.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. And if you don't pay attention and you get that moisture is the moisture and heat are like the two worst things for construction, right?
Well, yeah, deferred maintenance is exponential, right? And I think that's what I want to drive home to anybody listening right now is like, it's literally exponential. Like the example of the, cracks in the stucco, it's like that could literally be nothing more than elastomeric paint, right? Just a coat of paint, which you might need anyway, because your paint, paint might be faded, versus if you leave that, all the things that can happen. So, it really opens up this conversation. And I guess I'm thinking about it now, and it's like, we push maintenance, right? And I'll go to a home, and indoor air quality is huge, right? We're spending more time indoors now than we've ever have. And, especially for people who don't have backyards, big backyards. So it's like, who is pushing, really the education of homeowners to do this type of maintenance, right? Because like you say, you buy this home, and it's not like you get an owner's manual for your home and it's like, here's what you need to do on the light bulb went off in my head when you're talking. It's like, I get more information when I go to Jiffy Lube on my car than I do on my, on my home in terms of what things I need to both do now, but also what's right around the corner. What's a month away? What's 2 months away? How do I carry a budget, right? Homeowners love budgeting. It'd be so nice to know, like what you're saying, if you do annual inspections, it's like, great, well, you don't need to do this now, but guess what? In a year, you're going to need to do that. And that should be factored in your home maintenance budget.
Man, you touched on something that's really awesome we should probably talk about, which is indoor air quality. And again, my nerdy side is gonna come out. I'm an indoor air quality specialist. We have a department that solely looks for mold, moisture, and indoor air quality issues. But you're right, man. So many more people are spending time in the home right now. And it's not about just changing your air filter in your HVAC system. I mean, mechanical ventilation and natural ventilation is a key aspect to letting your house breathe. And so many people are locked up and they're afraid of, maybe like the COVID in the air and things like that, right? So they've closed their windows and they stopped opening their doors and they stopped all these mechanical things going on, and they don't realize that just breathing in a home, like sleeping, if you have more and more people in the home, the breathing, the moisture in that you're breathing in and out, if that's not properly ventilated, you could eventually create a mold scenario in your home where you can't even see it because mold spores are so low, are so tiny in particulate. But that's the reason to get. And if you have an oncoming breathing issue, or if you have asthmatic issues and things like that, and you're noticing you're starting to pick up a little bit more, have an indoor air quality test. We can do that for you. Send it to an independent lab. Again, no skin in the game on our part. We'll do the lab test for you. Send it to the lab. The lab will send you your own report, and you'll know what's going on in your air.
I mean, you guys obviously do a ton. I mean, that's probably an understatement, a ton of inspections. But why do you think, in your eyes, right? I mean, in the grand scheme, right? Why do you think that maintenance isn't perpetuated along better? Why do you think that, more homeowners aren't, cognizant of, oh, I need to restain my fence, and if I do that now, I'm going to get another 3 to 5 years out of this fence? Or what do you think is the break in the chain where this isn't perpetuated as well as it could be?
I think the industry, from a contractor standpoint, so fragmented. You have your plumbers, you have your electricians, you have your fence guys, you have your roofers, and they don't all work on the same plane. So that's why we, as a home inspection company, really try to push that home maintenance and give every person who has an elite inspection a home maintenance book that does have those maintenance intervals in it.
Yeah, I think it's something we've been trying to push, and our whole industry has been trying to push for a long time, because we want the experience to be better for everybody. I mean, there's nothing worse than walking into a tight situation where the buyer's upset because I found a problem, and the seller's upset because I found that problem, and now this transaction is that, and that realtors are now upset because their commission's on the line. I mean, this is all resolved if people would just take note of home maintenance and honestly start paying attention to it. I think the transactions would be so much smoother. Absolutely. And we would have such just an easier transition. But I think what we're touching on right now is the fact that there's, I think it's a generational thing. I mean, Matt, you and I grew up young guys floating foundations with our dads or our uncles and stuff like that, right? I mean, these were people that weren't afraid to work. They got down, they got dirty. And then generationally now we've gotten away from this thing. Now we're like, a lot of us don't even make food anymore. Like we click on our phone and food's delivered, right? And we do this and Amazon's delivering. And so it's this very sort of hands-off type of thing that we're starting to see with generational changes. And people don't know what to do because I think it's either they're their lack of confidence in doing the work, maybe their lack of education and how much work it takes. And then, I think, the horror stories that they hear about getting into opening a can of worms they just don't want to open.
Yeah.
And then you have the whole thing about probably everybody works really hard during the week, right?
Yeah.
And then they don't want to take that weekend out of their time to barely do the lawns. So asking them to put elastomeric caulking on your stucco or trim, or painting that trim on your house is kind of a task.
It's funny, you touched on something in the book. I have a section called DIY versus HIY. So it was the do-it-yourself age, and now it's the hire-it-yourself age.
Yeah.
And so what that looks like, right? Because a lot of us are saying, look, it could be, like you said, maybe a lack of education or knowledge or desire, right? Whatever the factor is. We live in a world where it's so easy to go on and hire somebody for individual specific tasks, pick up my groceries, deliver this food, right? Whatever it is. And you're right. I think it does. I guess I'm making the connection now that has a big impact. So let's say that, we realize the value in having a home inspection. How do we, we're on Google, we're looking up. We're looking, how do we compare? What questions do we ask? Because this is a huge, huge, huge thing, right? Like, if you're contacting us in the masonry and concrete space, we've got a reputation now where people know. They're like, look, DeBarra Masonry is they're going to give you the honest opinion, even if it talks us out of a job. There's plenty of times where we're like, look, you don't need concrete here. You need turf is good. And they're like, that's our culture, right? That's what we do. But in your space, it's like, how do you differentiate, because there's so much at risk, right? If I hire the wrong home inspector and they miss something, or they're not as thorough, or I'm not aware of some of the shortcomings, it sounds like a pretty big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And, home inspections are one of those things where, the technology piece is definitely important. And a lot of inspectors do have that technology piece. We try to take it a step further. But reputation and skin in the game. How long has the company that you're looking at working with been in business? What does their social media platform look like? What does Yelp and Google look like as far as reviews go? It's just, particularly in California, that's important. This is not, home inspectors aren't licensed in the state of California.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
This is it's a crazy industry out west, because in certain states, it's licensed. You have to be licensed almost like a contractor to be a home inspector. And California is still the Wild West. And so that means that any kid that graduates high school at 18 can basically pay for a membership of an association and take a test. And if they pass it, nobody knows if they're passing it or if they're cheating, and they're like, they have the Google machine over here and they're answering the questions here. So imagine an 18-year-old kid just needs a job, right? He needs a side hustle or whatever. He goes on and he takes this test, and now he's qualified to inspect your home. So like Paul said, we push it to the next level. So every one of our guys are vetted. They have to go through a 3-month interview of doing inspections. And that also, they don't even get to that beginning part until they complete what we call the 1-year education platform. So again, that kid, the 18-year-old kid, takes one test, pays one fee. And now he's qualified to be a home inspector under the association. Our guys have to take 26 courses online. They have to pass them with a 90% or better before they can even go out in the field with the certified master inspector. That certified master inspector has to read their reports for the first month, and then they go out on their own for the first 60 days, and then Paul and I are reading their reports. So we really vet, because it all comes down to integrity, and it's the law of numbers. We're doing this 30,000 a year in inspections. We want to make sure that we know we're going to get a bad review. Everybody does from time to time, but we don't try to take those down. We let people voice their opinion, and we have the highest number of reviews, 5-star reviews, in any company in our space. So I think when you're vetting, you just need to look for education, for that integrity, for that 5-star review. Make sure they have the technology, check their websites. And make sure you're not getting the guy who's coming out and just writing on the clipboard, because that may not be the guy that you want. He could still be really good. That's the other thing, is I don't want to point bad on anybody. The guy could be a really good guy. Maybe he just doesn't have the ability yet to get all those tools. But I think, that's when you're hiring somebody for a very, very important inspection. So make sure they're the right people.
Yeah. And then we live in the day and age, I gave the example of the yellow pages with my dad, right? Like now it's like we've gone to the other side of that, where you can throw up a pretty nice website pretty quick and pretty easy. Yeah. What are some questions that you want to ask? So you got the education component, right? But is in your company, is it something where all of that education that everybody receives that works for you? Like if I'm the homeowner and I go on your website, I'm going to see a lot of this information, but what do I need to ask to really feel confident, right? That I'm, Elite Group is the company versus, say, someone else. Like what should I ask, or what is some criteria, right? Because it always starts online.
Mm-hmm. And
so
it really does come down to that experience and those repetitions and the unique thing about the Elite Group is, we do have some inspectors that have 2-3 years of experience. We have inspectors that have 30 plus years of experience, but 37 years in business, all that has been learned and all of the mistakes that have been made over 37 years are baked into the product that we offer now, that is consistent across the board with all 80 of our inspectors. And we're really, in California, the only home inspection company that can say that.
Yeah.
Because that lack of consistency is abound in the inspection market in California, and just our time in the business and the amount of inspections that we've performed is really we've worked our way out of that. We're beyond that now.
Yeah, I think that, trying to answer your question, I think it's going to be depends on what that client is looking for, right? Obviously you're going to ask all those basic questions. How long you've been doing business? Who's the right guy? Because we have 80 people, we have the most availability. And so, but you might be buying a house on a hillside and you might want someone who's a little bit more tenured in that, and so all of our guys have a certain skill base. And so when our call center looks at the calendar, we have everybody sorted based on how many years they have experience. And then they have a box of their profile that talks about all of their experience. I mean, I have guys who've been contractors before, and, guys who, used to be stucco contractors, and we have those Sabre Foundation guys that work for us now. I mean, so depending on what your biggest concern is, a lot of times that will help us direct you to the right inspector. But we are confident in all of our inspectors, and
Absolutely.
we go through so much training, so much that we actually have a newsletter now. One of our managers puts out, right? Our manager is in charge of claims, right? Because everybody's going to have a problem at some point in time. And again, we face all those head on. We're going to learn from every claim. One of the owners taught me a long time ago is, if we did something wrong, we're going to help you fix it. Because if we make a mistake, we want to back it up. Then you can tell you and your family have that same sort of passion for doing things right. And I think that's what sets us apart from different people in the industry, in your industry and ours.
Yeah.
Is stepping behind your work and saying, we'll take care of it if we messed up. But so going on that lines, if we have a claims department and our manager who goes out and physically looks at these claims and walks through them and finds out what we could have done better, he puts out a newsletter every single month of all the claims that we got in that month. And that's not a newsletter for just the one guy who got the claim. It's for all 80 inspectors to read, because why educate one guy on that one issue with expansive soil when all the guys need a reminder that, hey guys, it's summertime. We're going to start seeing that expansive soil problem again. And California's been in a drought for so long. So it really comes down to that. And Paul's really helped the team with that, bringing him in, from inspector to his role now. And he's really helped with just bringing that education to the entire team. And we've noticed, once you do that, your team responds so just an awesome response. They just feel so much more empowered to make better decisions as a home inspector. It's a very passionate job for all of us, and we just keep that circle going.
Certainly not easy, right? I mean, the amount that you need to know and understand, and the amount of training. I mean, I thought masonry and concrete was a tough thing to do, right? Because it's almost like an art form, right? This sounds like it's really, like you said, even with the technology, there's still the human element. Yeah. So it's fascinating to hear. So years in business, looking at the reviews, right? Understanding what technology they're going to use, understanding if they have specific inspectors for certain instances are huge. I mean, looking at the company history.
Price shop.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Price Shop is obviously there too, but I think these are some great things that homeowners can kind of use. I mean, in my eyes, you guys set the gold standard, right? So it's, it's probably hard in some ways for you to even think about some of the things, right, that homeowners need to be asked or should ask, right? Like you said earlier, like, you just asked all the right questions. Well, what we find too is, like, a lot of times homeowners, if they're doing this for the first time, they're like, well, do I ask how long you've been in business? What where do I find the about page on the website? So I think it's really cool that, you're, just by you explaining your process, I think, you're doing a really good job of painting a picture of these are the kinds of things you should be expecting if you want to be confident in an inspection, right? In the report that you're getting. So I think that's really cool. And I admire what you guys do. And I think that what I love about, the Undercover Contractor and this whole mission is it's really peeling back the curtain, right? Because I don't imagine there's too many projects in your homes that you wouldn't feel confident or comfortable hiring, right? Because this industry, what to look for. And so hopefully today with some of the listeners, we've passed on some of that confidence that they can have. And I love what you said about maintenance too, to go off on a little bit of a tangent. The key takeaway there is just to get the information, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you need to be overwhelmed with what you find and say, I need to do all of these things now, but knowledge truly is power,
Absolutely.
right? Knowing your
Absolutely.
home. And I love that thought. I think, if there's one key takeaway anybody listening finds and hears is I would seriously consider annual maintenance inspections. I think that it is crucial, because the worst thing that can happen is you can say, now I know, right? In my book, I have it opens up with it. We're still finalizing some of the things, but in the beginning, it says ignorance is bliss unless it costs $10,000. And we tie into what that is. You know what I mean? And it's so, I love it. I mean, this is really, really cool. I appreciate you guys being here.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you
Thank you
having
for
us.
inviting us. We're happy to join you whenever you'd like to go down this rabbit hole.
Oh my
anytime.
gosh,
We're
you
a
guys
bunch
will be
of
back.
nerds.
I'm dragging you guys back.
I love it.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna
Let's
twist
do
your
it.
arms and put you in here, but we're just scratching the surface. I want to I want to open up the conversation about maintenance more. I think that's huge, and we've got a lot more to cover. So
Awesome.
this is good.
You're doing good things.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Guys. Thank you.
Build the legacy. I really like what you've done with your company too, and that's a good thing. I think we all want to do is we want to work with the right people and do the right thing for the rest of the public.
And the sad part is I think the more we can just get transparency and openness in the marketplace, right, in contracting in particular, it's almost like it becomes a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
You really, when you're standing in front of all of the right, true, honest, there's no back end deals. There's no vested interest. It's just like, hey, this is what it is. Make your choice. It's like, the cream rises to the top, and people, they're almost led in a direction that makes sense. So
Absolutely.
good stuff, guys. Well, I
Thanks
appreciate
again.
it.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
It's
it.
been
Thank
awesome.
you.
Cool.